Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So to start, I have a weird question. For you, where do you see Langdon being from? Because I do love that this show has slowly introduced where all these doctors are from and their backgrounds. But where do you kind of see him having been from?
Uh, having generally
Because like
Appalachia.
Dana, oh, okay, great. Where in Appalachia?
Well, I don't think I can say specifically because I don't want to get in the way of the writers. But I know that we had some preliminary discussion. I had some preliminary discussions with Scott and John, and they mentioned in the Appalachia region, which is great because that's where I'm from. And so yeah, I think generally they're about.
Well, that's great because I was born in Pittsburgh and then I went to my college was Appalachian State. So
Let's
that
go,
Langdon
Mountaineers!
so Langdon's a great character for me as a person. But I also love, he gets to kind of go on a full arc in the middle of this one day where a lot of other people it is a slow build because it is just a day of work and we get to see him at the top of his game and then obviously at the bottom of it. For you as an actor when you get a full season script like this and you see not only where your character goes throughout a whole season but thinking about it as hour by hour of a day, how do you kind of wrap your head around, okay, well, he starts here and I have to get him to point B by the end of this season, but I also have to recognize it's one guy's day and that's all he's kind of going through.
Yeah, it was really tricky because we actually did not get a full script season. I knew what happened in episode one. I knew what happened in episode 10, and I knew what happened in episode 13. But outside of that, I didn't know what happened. And so I knew where I started in episode one, and I knew where I had to fall off the cliff in episode 10, but I didn't really know the trajectory between those 2 points. And so it was a bit like flying blind, but it was really fun. And actually, I think was really useful because I think this being my first TV job, I think there would have been I would have been really tempted to try to get like too tricky
Mm-hmm.
about things. And Scott put me in a position to really just do what I'm doing, do the scene that's in front of me, and he will worry about the orchestration of everything.
When there's a moment in the most recent episode that I made me, or not most recent, it was like I think the episode before 14. But Langdon obviously comes back when he's been told leave so that he can kind of take care of all of the patients that come in, all the victims. And you can read it one of two ways. You can read it as he saw that they needed him and came back, or you can read it as he was desperate to prove like he's fine, he can do this. For you, do you think of the two different ways that people can read that scene, or do you just have your one specific vision of like why Langdon did this and go with that?
Yeah, I think it's a yes and scenario. I think Langdon sees that there are people in need and that he is needed and that his team is already short staffed,
Mhm.
and if I were not to run in there and help them, all my friends and coworkers would be in a terrible situation. I mean, and and then and then also yeah, it doesn't take a ton of empathy to want to save lives of people who are dying in front of you. And also, whether consciously or unconsciously, yeah, he's very aware of the desperate situation that he is in career wise, and whether to what degree that motivates that decision, uh who knows, but I don't think he's yeah, I don't think he's coming in there in a manipulative way. I think he's coming in there to do the right thing, but I don't think the the desperation of his circumstances is lost on him.
And I do have a question about season two. So, like I said, I was born in Pittsburgh, but I my hometown is just slightly outside of Pittsburgh, and it is actually the firework capital of the United States of America. So the minute I heard it was 4th of July, I was like, oh, let's go. Like, I'm excited. And it's funny because everyone was like, oh, fireworks. I was like, you don't understand Pittsburgh and fireworks. It's like a whole thing. When you see all of those memes, like the minute stuff like that is announced and people are like, oh, I have firework things I want to see, does that make you excited to go back into work and go back into Pitt season 2 and see what the writers have cooked up for that?
Oh, well, I get a slow trickle of what happens on the internet. Like I don't have a Twitter, and but so my girlfriend will like show me things. She'll be like this, and she'll like she'll sort of like she'll corral like the funniest things and like sit down and show them to me, and we'll have a nice laugh. But I don't see everything out there. But yeah, I'm very excited. It's been very cool to see how many people are having so much fun gather around the show, and the conversations around the show are both can be really earnest and therapeutic and amazing for the healthcare community, and also just like really wacky and fun, and that's just been like a really cool thing to see. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens with season 2.
And one more question about season 2, and then I want to go back to season 1. But in season 1, I was upset about the lack of Pittsburghese. I don't know if you know what Pittsburghese is or how it functions in the world, but it is like a language all of its own that Pittsburgh has. Obviously, there was a shout out to Randy Brothers, and I did love that. But in making this show, have you learned anything about Pittsburgh? They're like, you know what? I kind of want to lean. I hope they lean into that in season 2.
Yeah, I think we can. I think there's a lot of Pittsburgh lore that we try to pepper in there.
Mhm.
As far as uh, the dialect thing, that's something that we kind of steered away from, because while we are in Pittsburgh, these rotational
Yeah,
shifts, people come from all over, and so might be in Pittsburgh now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I grew up in Pittsburgh.
yeah.
And so that's why we moved away from like too many like dialectical choices. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the Easter eggs that they have dropped in there. One of my very best friends, she's been my best friend for like 15 years, is from Pittsburgh, and I get texts from her regularly about the Yinzes.
Listen, the Yinzers, I haven't heard a single Yins. I was like, where's the Yins? I need to hear one Yins. And then I'll be like, great, no notes. But back to season 1, obviously the big draw for a lot of us. I'm a 90s kid, so the minute they were like, it's Noah Wiley back in hospital, I was like, great, I'm in. I need no other information. And then they're like, well, and also it's in Pittsburgh. So I was like, my whole family is texting about the show. But when you are in something that, everyone is talking about and comparing it to ER and 24 and all these shows that have come before, despite it kind of being its own thing, what for you is the biggest, like your most exciting part about how everyone is not only reacting to the show, but Langdon in particular? Because, he is the favorite in a lot of ways on the internet.
Uh, well, just being part of a show that being part of a project that is like part of the zeitgeist, like part of the conversation that is going on, is amazing. It's just amazing. And you know, we really made this show for healthcare workers. And I remember we had a screening of episode 1 fairly early on, and for the cast and crew. And I remember the next day Noah comes up to me and he goes, "So, what do you think?" And I go, "Man, I love it. I love it. I think it's going to be one of those shows that people brag about having watched." And and I kind of like, at the time, I'm not gonna lie, I meant that in sort of like a scared way. And that I was like, man, this is awesome, but this feels pretty niche. You know, this feels like kind of a niche thing. Like we're not doing any of the things that you're supposed to do to be popular, you know? Like we're just kind of doing it straight up. But I love it. I'm here for it. And so the fact that audiences broadly are here for it, I think is just cool. It's cool. And it just says a lot about what can happen when you trust your audience. And I think that's what Scott and John have done, is they took a giant bet in trusting their audience and respecting their audience. And it's amazing. It's an amazing team to be part of.
Yeah, you guys helped bring appointment television back in a big way. And it makes me so excited to see everyone on Thursdays be like, it's Pitt day. Everyone needs to watch the Pitt.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah. I miss it. But thank you so much for talking with me. I love this show. It has made my whole family talk about a television show, which I think is fun. And so thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, have a great one.
Yeah.
Bye.